Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In today's video we're going to be looking at the plot of different functions. And we're also going to be using illustrations in this video to further enhance our understanding of how to plot functions. So let's get started with the first function, which is the linear function. And the linear function is the most simplest function out there since it's just a straight line. And the standard equation for a linear function is y equals to mx+c, where m is equal to the slope and c is equal to the intercept. And sometimes you can also get if m is equal to 1 and c is equal to 0, then that means we'll just get y is equal to x, which is just this line here. As we can see, it's just y equals to x, which is just a straight line that passes through 0, 0. But sometimes we can also get a value for c, for example, plus 5. Then what would happen is that this line would just get shifted up 5 turns onto the x, and if we could also have negative numbers, so it would just go down that way. So c would be the intercept, and then we have also m, which is the slope. So basically the greater m is, the higher this line would go, so it would go upwards. And this basically sums up everything for our first function, the linear function. And the next function we have is the inverse function, and this is a nonlinear function. And this is how the equation looks like. Y is equal to 1 upon x. And this inverse function completely makes sense because if you plugged in some values, for example, if we plugged in 0 here, if x was equal to 0, then this line would go straight up because it's undefined. If we put x equal to 1, then y should be equal to 1. So here we can see that works. And the bigger x gets, then the smaller the line will get, like this. And it's also the same thing for the negative side as well. And this inverse function, y is equal to 1 upon x, is also a hyperbola function. So our next function that we have is the square function, and this is also a nonlinear function. So here's the standard equation. Y is equal to x squared. And what will the plot for this look like? This is how it looks like. So we can see, based on y is equal to x squared, this will always be positive. There's going to be no negative numbers, because if you have a squared term, even if you have a positive or negative number for x, your answer will always be positive. So this is how it looks like. And if we just try to plug in some values, so the first value we can put is just 5. So if we put 5 squared, that'd be equal to 25. So we can see that that is pretty close to 25. And also we could also try a negative number, so let's just try negative 5, and negative 5 squared is also 25. So if we go over here and we go here, we can see that it still lands on 25. So this is the third function, which is called the square function, and this is a parabolic equation. And now the next function we have is the inverse square function, and the standard equation is y is equal to 1 upon x squared. And this is how the plot for this looks like. So this is really similar to the inverse function, which is 1 upon x, and this time we're just doing x squared, and basically just the difference is that, and basically the difference between this inverse square function and just the inverse function is that here on the square function you can see that the numbers get smaller quickly compared to the inverse function. And also this inverse square function is a hyperbolic function. And the next function we have is the square root function, and the standard equation for this is y equals to the square root of x. So what do you think the plot for this one would look like? And this one looks a lot different than the other ones. It looks kind of like a straight line, but it's not really a straight line. It does kind of remind me of a linear equation, but this is obviously not a linear equation. You can see that it's curving out. Y is equal to the square root of x is actually a square root function. The next function we have is a cubic function, and the standard equation for this would be y is equal to x cubed. And what do you think the plot for this one would look like? And this is how the plot for this one looks like. So there's the negative side and there's the positive side, because you can have a negative number, so that means we can have a negative side, and you can also have a positive number, so that's why you also have a positive side. And as you can see based off this graph, the cubic function has an exponential growth. So if x would be equal to 1, then you can see that the cubic function would be really small because it would just be x squared. So if x is 1, then it's still equal, y is still going to be equal to 1. But as you can see here, as soon as we're getting close to 10, you can see that it goes up and up. And if you keep on going, then the numbers will be really high, since this is a cubic function. And now the next function we have is the inverse cubic function. And the standard equation for this is y equals to 1 upon x cubed. And the plot for this looks like this. And this is really similar to the other functions that we saw. And this is obviously really similar to the other inverse functions that we saw. And as you can see, this is really similar to the other inverse functions that we saw, where there's a negative side and also a positive side, since we're able to have a negative number here. And also the inverse cubic function is a hyperbolic function. And that basically summarizes everything for this video. So thank you so much for watching from Try to Be Useful, and we'll see you guys in our next math video.